one thing is to attract investors, another is to retain them. Yeah. How can we encourage investors to return and you know, stay for the long haul?
Well, the major issue for investors returning is the ability to enforce laws. You know, if investors come and the terms of the agreement of any business partnership they get into are respected. If they have infringements, they go to court, and the court decides the case, you know, speedily. So most of what will bring investments are that perception and reality, you know, come to the same. In terms of promises we make, in terms of things we tell them, they get them. Then they have security in the country. They come to the country and the place is secure, it's friendly, and the businesses or the investments they make are profitable. But the critical thing is honor, the legal system, the law. The law is it. If government makes a promise, they meet that promise. But that is where we fall down. You go and have joint ventures in the oil and gas. When it is time to pay, government does not bring its own portion, but they collect the money. And then there are arrears of joint venture funding. Go to the oil industry. Everywhere government is a partner in business, they're always falling back. They are willing to take the benefit, but they are not fully fulfilling their obligation. So to get investors coming, let's fulfill obligations. Let's have the laws that protect investors and protect the community.
You know, some Nigerians have insinuated that government is not encouraging local investors the way they're encouraging foreign investors. Surely local investors are just as important, no?
I believe that the reason why there is this perception at some of the things I just said, we take people for granted. We take our local investors for granted. And so we begin to focus on external investors. But you see, the external investor will look at what is happening to the local investor before he comes in. So I believe that we should treat local investors well, because they will be witnesses. There are a few that have crossed the bar, and you see government running around, but they're just a small portion of what is possible. You know, those ones, part of the thing that helped a couple of them come up is that somehow they got support from government. A few of the big names in the private sector today got, at one season, they had other presidents or governors who showed an example of how a regulatory agency can be facilitative. Government can be facilitative or promotive of private sector investment, and they sprouted and they bloomed. So if you can repeat that, we can make a lot more Tony Lumelus, much more Fola Adiolas, many more Dangotes, Jim Ovias. It was a season. If that season did not happen, you won't be hearing about those guys. So that's another example that if government goes out of its way to create an enabling environment for domestic investments, it will have a very virtuous effect. These guys are not only domestic investors, they've also become international investors in Africa and elsewhere, lifting the banner of Nigeria. So there's a profit for the country to, you know, give some dedicated support to local entrepreneurs.
It's estimated that Nigeria needs about $3 trillion in infrastructure investment by 2024. In what ways can public-private partnerships be leveraged to attract new investments in this area?
To be sincere to you, there's nothing this country wants to do that they can't find the money in the international market from the private sector. Public sector spending, borrowing from World Bank, from ADB, from multilateral and bilateral, it's okay. But I believe that most of the infrastructural needs of this nation can be handled by the private sector, global private sector. They are willing, because the elements that can create high returns are in this market. every foreign company that has come to this country, except where we reneged, which we do sometimes fairly often, except where we change the rules or change the goalpost, they always went home with booty. They always went home, feeling good. Investors come to this country and they make good because we have a large population, we have a mobile population, we have a fairly growing educated population, and we also have an enterprising population. And then, of course, with the kind of natural resources that we have, that creates a potential pot of wealth. This is a market that many would like to come to. So, are you talking about roads? If we are willing. Are we talking about rail lines? If we are willing. Are we talking about airports? Are we talking about anything? The critical thing is, do we agree that I'm going to build this and run it for 25 years or 30 years or 50 years? And this is the role of government. So that if we start a project, we'll know when it ends. But when you create too much uncertainty, then you discourage investment. So I believe that government needs to set certain things that will create the right image in the mind of the investor, especially big-term and long-term investors. I mean, like what happened when they were building Lekki Express, where some uncertainty came, again, maybe due to wrong handling of community relationship. Those things frighten investors. So that's why investors are asking for guarantees. They ask for sovereign guarantees so that if anything goes wrong, and if the nation can do that, a lot more PPP will be available and that money will be provided.
How can we improve the existing structure of public service to meet the country's economic development goals? And where do you see the greatest room for improved efficiency in the public sector?
Well, I think the first thing is that the public sector needs a total reorientation. I have had the opportunity of serving in government boards. I've been quite close to the working of the public sector. I have lived and worked all my life in the private sector. And I realize that there is first a different mindset, no matter what anybody says. The mindset is different. They don't have understanding of time value for money. So what can be done today, why don't we do it next year? Nobody's spending money. Nobody's accountable. So I believe that we need a reorientation. I know I have criticized government agencies. And when I get down to see what some of them are paid and how they are paid, and sometimes how they are not even paid that little they are supposed to pay as at when due, you would then sometimes be more reasonable or more restrained in the way you criticize, because you put yourself in your shoes. I mean, if you work and yet your take-home pay can't take you home, then what if you don't get any take-home